Welcome to Slash Forward, the channel where we provide summarization and commentary for all your favorite popular and obscure horror movies. In this video, we're going to recap the Final Destination series by way of ranking out the installments. And just to be clear, I altogether enjoyed the series and am excited that they have a new sequel or reboot in the works. Most of the critical elements of this ranking are for the purpose of comparison to sort out why I put each film in its place. With that, let's get started. I'm not sure there's a clear winner for the bottom spot, so right now I have both The Final Destination, the fourth installment, and Final Destination 3 tied for the same general reason. These two movies are essentially interchangeable and offer very little to move the series forward. Any new plot devices or mechanisms by which the characters come to learn about their situation represent mostly superficial additions. We're not watching these movies to find a new way to provide groups of teens indications of how death is coming. We're watching an appreciation of their collaborative struggles to attempt to avoid an inevitable outcome. Although if I had to choose, I'd probably place Final Destination 3 above The Final Destination, so I'll do them in that order. The Final Destination in particular suffers from substandard CGI and a reliance on visions to move the plot forward. There isn't much to explain how the characters come to know or understand the rules. Also, while they attempted to ramp up the carnage and make the movie more fresh, a lot of the characters felt flat. This doesn't feel like the type of movie where it's edgy to have the racist character actually go so far as to use the N-word. It didn't feel authentic or earned by the script. The third one had a somewhat uneven tone. It had some really good scenes overall and was much more cinematic in feel than the fourth movie, which had a straight-to-video quality to it. But number 3 also had some particularly contrived deaths. And yes, they're all contrived to a fairly significant degree, but some of them go overboard, if you get my drift. I'm talking about this board here as an example. It's hard to believe that it wouldn't have inadvertently worked itself out on its own. The movie feels like it coasts a bit on the strength of the series as a whole. It introduces knowledge of the first two movies so it can yada yada its way through, but without adding new elements, other than pictures providing portents of doom. Next on the list is the fifth film. This is the first in this ranking that is not only a good addition to the series, but that's attempting to add something other than just bigger, more complicated kills. Unfortunately, they also spend a good amount of time wallowing in their production value. This one has a larger scale, but provides a ton of character building in between all the story elements. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it slows it down a bit. I found my notes for the recap of this one to be fairly sparse, because there's a lot of unnecessary events happening in between the death sequences. And this is what happens when you take the addition of all these character-driven scenes and intersperse them among the necessary scenes of long, drawn-out, tension-filled death sequences, and the funeral/cemetery scenes that are a staple of the series. You end up eating all your runtime and having a relatively hollowed-out plot. In addition, like most of the series, there's an attempt to add or advance the rule-based aspect of the plot, and like most of the rest of the series, it doesn't mean anything and leads us nowhere by the end of the movie. Fun plot twist, though. The next spot is taken by Final Destination 2, which I consider to be the only true sequel in the series. It extends the events of the original, adds some new elements and rules, and ramps up the scale. It does a pretty decent job of pulling all these elements together, and is likely the most well-produced of the sequels. It tries to provide a direction for the series to follow and branch out from, but no later sequels truly pick up the baton and run with it, unfortunately. And finally, the top spot. Sorry folks, no hot takes here. After careful consideration, I have to place the original in the top spot. This was a first-time watch for me on the series, so I feel like I'm free of the clouding effects of nostalgia, so here's the rundown. The first one feels the most polished of the entire series, despite its flaws. It set up a few rules to guide the action and then generally followed them. The characters discovered the rules and the impact of their actions in a generally organic way. It presented a novel and interesting concept and laid out the groundwork for the sequels. We just never fully arrived at a movie that truly extends the universe these films occupy in a meaningful way. As a result, we get a series of movies that contain very similar elements and unfold on the same beats for the most part. At times, it feels like the only significant differences between each one are the death sequences. This makes each sequel excessively derivative. So if we're judging the individual movies in a series based on their overall quality as a movie, rather than by measuring the titillation factor of their death scenes, I'm not sure I would be compelled by an argument that doesn't place the original on top. And that's the ranking of the Final Destination series. In the next video, we're going to review the top 10 deaths. Next week we'll be moving on to a new series, so be sure to come back and check it out. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.